There is something happening beneath the surface of your life right now. Something quiet, almost imperceptible, like the first movement of water before it becomes a wave. You may not feel it yet, you may not see it yet, but it is there. And it has been waiting for you to notice it. It has been waiting for you to stop looking outward long enough to understand the extraordinary truth about the nature of reality itself. Because the world you are living in, the circumstances you find yourself surrounded by, the outcomes you keep reaching for and somehow never quite grasping, none of it is happening to you. All of it, without exception, is happening through you. And once you truly understand this, not just intellectually, but in the marrow of your soul, everything changes. Not gradually, not eventually. Everything changes from the inside, and then it rearranges itself on the outside to match. Understand this deeply. You are not a person waiting for luck. You are not a person hoping the universe will finally glance your way. You are not standing on the outside of abundance looking through a glass window, pressing your palms against it, wondering why the door never opens. The truth is far more staggering than that. You are the door. You are the window. You are the house itself. You are the consciousness within which all of this experience is taking place. And when you begin to grasp what that truly means, the entire concept of luck dissolves into something far more magnificent. Something that Neville Goddard called the law of assumption, and what the ancient teachers called the kingdom of God within you. Think about this for a moment. When you imagine winning, when you close your eyes and allow yourself to feel what it would feel like to hold the winning ticket, to see those numbers align, to hear the gasp of disbelief and then the rising flood of joy, something happens inside you. There is a warmth, a rightness, a sense of expansion. That feeling is not wishful thinking. That feeling is consciousness reaching toward its own reflection. That feeling is imagination, which Neville Goddard taught was the very presence of God within you, brushing against a truth that has always been available to you. And the question is not whether that experience can become real. The question is whether you are willing to stop believing that it cannot. Let that sink into your spirit for a moment. The reason most people never experience the breakthroughs they long for is not because the universe is stingy. It is not because they were born under an unlucky star, or because life simply isn't fair. The reason most people never step into the abundance they can feel in their bones is because of what they believe about themselves when no one else is watching. It is what you say to yourself in those quiet spaces. It is the running narrative beneath your waking thoughts, the one that whispers things like, "This doesn't happen to people like me," or "I've been hoping for so long and nothing has changed." That inner voice is not telling you the truth about the world. That inner voice is telling you the truth about your current assumption. And your current assumption is creating your current experience. This is the teaching that Neville Goddard spent his entire life illuminating. He did not teach a philosophy of positive thinking in the superficial sense. He did not ask people to plaster affirmations on their mirrors and hope for the best. He taught something far more radical, far more precise, far more spiritually ancient. He taught that imagination is the only reality, that consciousness is the only cause, that the external world is nothing more than a screen upon which your inner state has been projected. And if you want the image on the screen to change, you do not push against the screen. You change the projector. You change what you are radiating from the inside. You change your assumption about who you are and what is possible for you. Consider this carefully, because it is the hinge upon which everything else turns. What do you currently assume about your relationship with abundance? Not what you hope, not what you wish, but what do you actually quietly, deeply assume? When you think about large sums of money appearing in your life, when you imagine your financial reality transforming completely, what does your gut tell you? For most people, beneath the surface of the hope, there is a competing belief, a deeper, older assumption that says, but not really. That assumption is the thing that must shift, not through willpower, not through discipline, not through effort, through consciousness, through a deliberate, sustained interior revision of what you accept as true about yourself. The ancient scripture is not vague about this. It is remarkably specific. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not as he speaks, not as he performs, as he thinks in his heart. The heart, in the language of the Bible, is the subconscious mind, the deep inner seat of assumption, of accepted truth, of felt reality. What lives there becomes flesh. What you truly believe at that level takes form in the world around you. This is not metaphor. This is the mechanism of creation itself. And once you understand it, you realize that you have always been creating. You have always been manifesting. The only question is whether you have been doing it consciously or unconsciously. Feel this deeply. Every result you have ever experienced in your life has come from a state of consciousness you were occupying at the time. Every door that opened was preceded by an inner shift. Every windfall, every unexpected blessing, every moment when something arrived and you thought, I can't believe this happened. All of it was the outer world catching up to an inner state. It did not arrive randomly. It arrived because on some level, in some moment, you inhabited the feeling of it being possible. Perhaps you didn't realize you were doing it. Perhaps it happened naturally, spontaneously, without conscious intention. But the pattern was always there. Consciousness always preceded the condition. And here is what that means for you right now, in this moment. You have the ability, not someday, not under the right circumstances, not after you've worked hard enough or suffered long enough, but right now, in this very moment, to change your inner state. To step into the assumption that abundance is not foreign to you, that wealth does not belong to other people more than it belongs to you, that the universe is not holding out on you, that you are not excluded from the table of provision. You have the ability to close your eyes right now and let a wave of imagined certainty wash through your body, the certainty that your financial life is transforming, that luck, as the world calls it, is finding its way to you, that a sum of money beyond what your current circumstances seem to allow is making its way into your hands through channels you cannot yet see. Imagine for a moment that you are already there. Not that you are hoping to get there, not that you are working toward it, that you are already there. Imagine that the moment has already happened. The lottery has found you. The unexpected gift has arrived. The financial miracle, that thing you have been circling in your imagination, that thing you have been afraid to believe could really happen, has happened. How does your body feel? Notice the warmth. Notice the loosening of the chest. Notice the way your breathing changes when you drop the resistance and allow yourself to live inside that reality, even for just a moment. That state, that precise feeling state, is not a fantasy. It is a frequency. And the law of assumption says that whatever frequency you sustain, you eventually and inevitably experience in physical form. This is why the greatest spiritual teachers throughout history have said the same thing in so many different ways. Believe that you have received it, and it shall be given to you. Mark 11:24 is not a suggestion. It is not a prayer technique. It is a description of how consciousness works. The believing must come first. The receiving follows the believing, not the other way around. This runs against everything the rational mind has been trained to accept. The rational mind says, show me first, then I will believe. Consciousness says, believe first, and then I will show you. The rational mind says, I will feel abundant when I have more money. Consciousness says, you will have more money when you feel abundant. This inversion is not a trick. It is the actual structure of reality as experienced from within. And every single person who has ever stepped into unexpected, miraculous abundance has at some point made this inversion. They stopped waiting for the outer world to tell them they were allowed to feel wealthy. They started radiating wealth from the inside, and the outer world had no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. You must realize that the lottery, the windfall, the unexpected financial blessing, these are not destinations that you travel toward from a place of lack. They are experiences that arise naturally when you inhabit a particular state of being. Think about the difference between those two frameworks for a moment. In the first framework, you are a person standing in poverty of circumstance, reaching and straining toward wealth, hoping that something external will bridge the gap. In the second framework, you are consciousness itself, vast, unlimited, creative, choosing to inhabit the state of already being wealthy. In the first framework, the journey feels long and uncertain. In the second, the manifestation is not a journey at all. It is a revelation. It is the outer world simply becoming what the inner world already is. Neville Goddard used to speak of what he called living in the end. This phrase has been quoted many times, but its full depth is rarely felt. Living in the end does not mean pretending. It does not mean performing a false happiness you don't feel. It means something far more interior and far more powerful. It means that in the theater of your imagination, in that private, sacred space inside you where no one else has access, you allow the fulfilled desire to be the scene you return to, the story you inhabit, the state you fall asleep inside. Because it is in that liminal space between waking and sleep, in the state Neville called the hypnagogic state, where the subconscious mind is most receptive to the impressions you give it. And the subconscious mind does not judge. It does not evaluate whether something is realistic. It simply takes what you give it and works tirelessly to reproduce it in your outer world. Allow yourself to see what this means in practical terms. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, instead of reviewing the day's frustrations, instead of rehearsing your worries about money or replaying the evidence of lack, you can choose. You can deliberately, consciously choose to inhabit a scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire. You can feel the texture of that moment, the sound of your own voice telling someone close to you what just happened, the physical sensation of holding that knowledge in your chest, the specific, sensory felt reality of having received the abundance you desire. You can inhabit that scene completely, with all your senses engaged, and as sleep takes you, allow it to be the last thing your consciousness rests upon. This is not wishful dreaming, this is subconscious reprogramming. This is the deliberate seeding of your deepest mind with the assumption of your desire fulfilled. And what is planted in the subconscious grows, without fail, into the outer world. Let this settle within you. The subconscious mind is not your enemy. It is not conspiring to keep you small. It is simply, faithfully, mechanically reflecting back whatever you have consistently given it. It is a perfect mirror. It has no agenda. It has no preferences. It produces what it receives. If you have consistently given it worry, it produces circumstances that seem to warrant worry. If you have consistently given it images and feelings of lack, it produces circumstances that seem to confirm lack. But the moment, and this is the miracle, the very moment you begin to give it something different, it begins to produce something different. Not after years of discipline, not after you've earned it, right away. The shift begins immediately, invisibly, at the level of consciousness, and then it works its way outward into the tangible world. Think about this for a moment. Imagine a seed planted in rich, dark soil. You cannot see it working. From the outside, the ground looks undisturbed. Days pass, nothing appears. The rational mind, looking at the surface of the soil, might conclude that nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary is taking place. The seed is cracking open. Roots are reaching down. The first tender shoots are finding their way upward. And then, one morning, you step outside and there it is. Visible, real, unmistakable. The outer world has caught up to the inner process. This is exactly how consciousness works. The moment you plant a new assumption in the subconscious, the moment you inhabit the feeling of your desire fulfilled, something invisible begins to move. Circumstances begin to shift. People appear who weren't in your life before. Opportunities surface that couldn't have been predicted. Doors open that were invisible to you moments earlier. The outer world is catching up to the new seed you have planted. Notice what happens when you stop fighting reality and start creating it. This is the distinction that separates people who seem to attract miraculous outcomes from those who remain perpetually frustrated. The ones who attract miracles have, consciously or unconsciously, stopped arguing with their current circumstances and started occupying a different inner state. They have learned, through spiritual insight, or through sheer desperation, or through grace, that the current circumstances are not a verdict. They are a reflection of a previous state of consciousness, which means that a new state of consciousness, held with consistency and feeling, will produce a new reflection. The outer world is always the last to know. The inner world leads, always. You are not your current bank balance. Let that truth move through you right now. You are not defined by the number on your account statement. You are not your history of lack. You are not the sum of your disappointments or your missed opportunities or the times when something you hoped for did not come through. Those experiences are not your identity. They are the residue of previous states of consciousness, showing up in physical form, doing what the outer world always does, lagging behind the inner world, trying to catch up. And right now, in this moment, you are being invited to choose a new inner state. A state that does not wait for outer confirmation. A state that knows, with a deep, unshakable, soul-level knowing, that abundance is not only possible for you, but that it is, in truth, your natural inheritance. The Bible speaks of an inheritance not earned, but received. The kingdom of God is within you, not in some far-off place, not after death, not after suffering enough, or praying enough, or performing enough goodness to qualify. Within you, right now. The kingdom, in the language of Neville Goddard, is the realm of consciousness. The realm where imagination reigns, where assumption becomes law, where whatever you accept as true takes form in the world. You already live inside this kingdom. You have always lived inside it. The only question is whether you have been ruling it consciously or allowing old, inherited assumptions to rule it for you. And the invitation of this moment is to take your rightful place, to assume the identity of a person who is not just hoping for abundance, but who knows, with a certainty that lives beneath logic, that it is already done. Consider this. There are people right now in the world who have won enormous amounts of money, experienced extraordinary financial reversals, found themselves suddenly and completely free of every financial constraint they once believed was permanent. Were they smarter than you? Were they more deserving? Did they work harder or suffer longer or pray more perfectly? In almost every case, the answer is no. What they had, whether they knew it or not, was a moment of complete inner surrender to the possibility. A moment when the resistance dropped, a moment when the assumed impossibility cracked open, and in that crack, the light of a different assumption flooded in. That is all that separates the experience of a miraculous windfall from the experience of ordinary circumstances. Not luck in the external sense, not fate, not the arbitrary favor of a capricious universe. A shift in inner state, a moment of genuine felt embodied belief. Feel this deeply. That shift is available to you right now. You do not need to manufacture it through force. You cannot push your way into a state of genuine belief, but you can do something more powerful than pushing. You can allow, you can breathe, you can stop, for just a moment, the stream of reasons why this cannot happen for you, and in that pause, let your imagination go somewhere beautiful. Let it rest in the scene of fulfillment. Let it find the feeling of freedom, of relief, of absolute and total financial abundance flowing into your life through channels you don't need to identify. You don't need to know the how. The how is not your job. Your job is the state. Your job is the inner reality. The how is the function of the infinite intelligence that underlies all of creation, that which Neville called God, that which the mystics called the divine, that which science is beginning to recognize as the interconnected field of consciousness from which all physical reality emerges. Let this expand inside you. You are connected to that intelligence. You are not separate from it. You are not a small, isolated mind begging something vast and external to toss a blessing your way. You are an expression of that vastness. You are that intelligence, individualized into a particular point of experience, with the capacity to choose what you assume, what you imagine, what you accept as true. And in that capacity lies a creative power so extraordinary that when people first genuinely glimpse it, they feel a combination of awe and disbelief. Awe because it is magnificent. Disbelief because the culture they were raised in told them they were small and circumstantial and subject to forces beyond their control. But the truth, the ancient, enduring, eternally available truth, is that you are the force. You are the creative power. And the world around you is responsive to you in ways you are only beginning to understand. Understand this. The lottery does not belong to people who are lucky. In the deepest sense of what is happening, the lottery finds those who have stopped trying to get lucky and started being the consciousness within which abundance is a given. The ticket, the windfall, the unexpected check, the financial opening that comes out of nowhere, these are all just forms that abundance takes when abundance has become your inner reality. The universe does not care which form the abundance takes. It simply responds to your state. If your state says abundance, abundance arrives. It might come as a lottery win. It might come as a business opportunity. It might come as a gift. It might come as a resolution to a debt. It might come as an inheritance from someone you barely knew. The form is irrelevant. The state determines the substance, and the universe selects the most natural available channel through which to deliver it. This is why it serves you so little to be attached to exactly how the abundance comes. When you fixate on one specific channel, when you say, it has to be the lottery and nothing else, you may be constricting the very flow you are trying to open. Allow the abundance to come in whatever form it chooses. Give the subconscious and the infinite intelligence permission to surprise you. Give them latitude. Say in the interior of your consciousness, not as a desperate prayer but as a settled declaration, abundance is flowing into my life. Large, unexpected, miraculous sums of money are finding their way to me. Wealth is not foreign to me. It is my natural state. And then release the how, release the when, not in resignation, not in passive giving up. Release the how and when in faith, in the deep, quiet knowing that the work is done on the inside and the outside will not fail to catch up. Notice what happens when you practice this with consistency. The mind wants to break in with objections. The rational mind wants to remind you of your bills, your history, your past attempts that didn't pan out. Let those thoughts pass like clouds through a sky. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts arise, and you have the authority to choose which thoughts you water and which you allow to drift by unattended. When the thought of lack arises, and it will, you do not need to fight it. You simply return, gently and without drama, to the state you have chosen, the state of abundance already received, the state of gratitude for what is already done, the state of peaceful certainty that the infinite intelligence is working on your behalf in ways your conscious mind cannot see. This is what the ancient practice of prayer truly is. Not supplication, not begging, not the performance of unworthiness asking to be briefly relieved. Prayer, in the tradition Neville drew from, is the assumption of the wish fulfilled. It is the deliberate occupation of the state of answered desire. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it. Believe that you have received it. Past tense. The receiving happens first in consciousness and then in form. This is the order. This is the sequence, and it cannot be reversed. No amount of outer striving or physical effort will substitute for the inner work of genuinely inhabiting the state of the desire fulfilled. The effort comes after the state in the form of inspired action, action that arises naturally from a consciousness aligned with its desire, not the exhausted pushing of a person trying to force outcomes from a place of lack. You must realize that you have been in a conversation with creation your entire life. Every assumption you have ever held has been answered. Every belief about yourself, every accepted truth about what is possible for you. All of it has been producing results with perfect, mechanical precision. The conversation has never stopped. You have simply been unaware that it was happening, and so you have allowed old, inherited, unconscious assumptions to do the speaking on your behalf. But now, in this moment, you are awake to it. You can see the mechanism. You can see that the conversation is continuous and that you have the power to change what you are saying. And that changes everything. Feel the weight of this realization and the freedom it contains at the same time. Yes, it means you have been participating in the creation of every limitation you have experienced. But it also means, and this is the liberating truth, that you have the power to participate in the creation of something entirely different. The same mechanism that has been producing limitation can, turned in a new direction, produce abundance. The same subconscious mind that has been faithfully manifesting lack can be reprogrammed to faithfully manifest wealth. The same consciousness that has been projecting struggle can be turned inward, reoriented, given a new image to inhabit and a new assumption to carry, and it will be just as faithful, just as precise, just as inevitable in producing abundance as it was in producing struggle. Allow yourself to see yourself differently right now. Not the person who has been watching abundance happen to other people. Not the person who has been on the outside of financial freedom, wondering when their turn will come. See yourself as what you truly are. Consciousness with the capacity to choose its own state. Divine awareness expressing itself through a human life. The presence and power of the infinite, individualized in you. Not less than, not excluded from, not spiritually disadvantaged or cosmically overlooked. You, fully resourced, fully connected to the field of infinite possibility, in possession of an imagination that is nothing less than the creative force of the universe itself, directed by your choice of what to inhabit and what to assume. Let this truth become your operating reality. Let it move from being an idea you find interesting into being an assumption you carry in your body. Because the difference between a thought you find intellectually stimulating and an assumption you hold in your body is the difference between reading about swimming and actually entering the water. The transformation requires immersion, not just observation. You must get wet. You must let the truth of your own power penetrate past the intellect and into the feeling body, into the subconscious, into the very fabric of how you walk through the world. This is not a spiritual concept to be admired from a distance. This is a living truth to be embodied, fully, completely, without reservation. The abundance is not coming. In the deepest reality, it is already here. It is already present in the field of infinite possibility that underlies all physical experience. The only thing that has ever stood between you and its manifestation in your tangible life is the assumption that it isn't, the assumption of absence, the habitual returning of your attention to the evidence of lack. And now you are choosing differently. Now you are returning your attention again and again to the inner reality of abundance already received, to the felt sense of financial freedom as your present reality, to the deep, quiet, unshakable knowing that your life is changing, not because you are trying harder, not because you are performing better, but because you are being different. You are inhabiting a different state. You are assuming a different truth. And the world, faithful as always, is rearranging itself to match. There is a moment in every transformation when the shift moves from feeling like an effort to feeling like a remembering. When the state of abundance stops feeling like something you are reaching for and starts feeling like something you are returning to. Like recognizing a language you forgot you knew. Like coming home to a place that was always yours. That moment is what the mystics called grace. That moment is what Neville called living from the state rather than working toward it. And it does not require that everything in your outer life has yet changed. It only requires that something in your inner life has permanently shifted. That a new assumption has taken root so deeply that it no longer feels like an assumption. It feels like a fact. A fact about who you are. A fact about what is available to you. a fact about the relationship between your consciousness and the infinite abundance of the universe. This is the moment you are in. This is the threshold you are standing on. Not a physical threshold, an interior one. The threshold between the version of you who is still waiting, still hoping, still approaching abundance as something that might or might not arrive, and the version of you who knows, who rests in the certainty of it, who can close their eyes tonight and inhabit the scene of fulfillment with a naturalness and an ease that feels not like imagination, but like memory. The version of you who wakes up in the morning with a quiet, settled excitement. Not because you can see the evidence yet, but because you know the evidence is coming. Because you know that the inner work is done. Because you have planted the seed and you have faith in the soil. Because you are aligned with the most fundamental law of this universe, that consciousness creates reality, that assumption becomes experience, that what you accept as true within you, without exception, takes form around you. Let this be the truth you carry forward from this moment. Not as a spiritual experiment, not as a temporary shift you try for a week and then abandon when nothing visible has changed yet. As your permanent, settled, non-negotiable orientation to life. As the assumption you live from. As the identity you inhabit. The person who is abundant. The person to whom large, unexpected, miraculous sums of money flow naturally and joyfully. The person who knows that the lottery, that the windfall, that the financial turning point they have been longing for is not approaching. It has arrived. In consciousness. In the only place where anything real ever arrives first. And now it is simply, beautifully, inevitably working its way outward into the physical world that has always been nothing more than consciousness made visible. You are that consciousness. This has always been the truth. And now, finally, you are living as if you know it. And living as if you know it is everything. It is the whole of the spiritual life, distilled into a single practice. Not the performance of faith in public, while doubt runs quietly underneath. Not the affirmations spoken aloud in the morning and forgotten by afternoon, but the deep, steady, continuous inhabiting of your chosen state. Morning, evening, in the middle of ordinary moments, in the space between tasks, in the breath between one thought and the next. This is what sustained transformation looks like. Not the grand gesture, not the dramatic surrender, the quiet, consistent returning. Every time the mind wanders back to worry, you return. Every time the old evidence tries to reassert itself as the truth about your life, you return. Not with force, not with self-criticism for having drifted, with a gentle, compassionate, unhurried turning back toward the inner reality you have chosen to inhabit. Think about this for a moment. The most powerful force in the human psyche is not willpower. It is not determination. It is not even desire, though desire is important. The most powerful force in the human psyche is identity. What you believe yourself to be, at the deepest level, you will inevitably experience. Not because the universe is punishing the unworthy or rewarding the worthy, but because consciousness is always, only, and entirely consistent with itself. It cannot project outward what it does not hold inward. It cannot manifest in the physical what has not first been accepted in the interior. This means that the work of transformation is not the work of doing more. It is the work of being different. It is the work of identity. Of genuinely, at the level of assumption, changing who you understand yourself to be. And who you understand yourself to be, in the deepest truth of your nature, is not someone who lacks. That experience of lack, that story of never quite having enough, never quite breaking through, watching abundance happen to others while you stand in its shadow, that is a story. A very convincing story, supported by years of physical evidence, reinforced by a culture that measures worth in terms of external accumulation. But it is a story. It is not your nature. Your nature is the same nature as the infinite itself, unlimited, creative, abundant, free. You are made of the same substance as all that is. You are not a stranger to abundance. You are abundance itself, temporarily convinced of its own scarcity. And the shift happens when the conviction dissolves, when you stop arguing for your limitations and start accepting your inheritance. Consider the image of a river. The water does not struggle to flow. It does not force itself downhill. It does not argue with gravity or wrestle with the rocks in its path. It flows. It follows the path of least resistance, and in doing so, it reaches the ocean inevitably. Your desire for abundance is the same. When you align your inner state with the reality of abundance already received, when you stop creating inner resistance through constant doubt and worry, the flow that was always available to you begins to move through your life with a naturalness and an ease that will astonish you. Things will click into place that you didn't arrange. Coincidences will multiply until they no longer feel like coincidences. The right person will say the right thing at the right moment. The opportunity you could not have manufactured will simply appear. Not because the universe randomly decided to favor you, but because you removed the inner obstruction to a flow that was always there. This is the spiritual logic of abundance. Not that you must earn it or attract it from a great distance, but that you must stop blocking it. And what blocks it is the sustained inner experience of its absence. The habitual, unconscious, emotionally potent rehearsal of lack. You know exactly what this looks like. It looks like lying awake at night calculating how short you fall. It looks like the tightening in the chest when the phone rings and you think it might be a bill collector. It looks like the bitterness that rises when you see someone else experiencing the financial freedom you want. All of that is energy directed toward the confirmation of lack. All of that is your creative power, which is immense and always operating, faithfully producing more of what you are most consistently feeling. And the invitation, the extraordinary, always available, no prerequisites required invitation, is to redirect that power. To take that same creative force and turn it toward a different inner experience. The experience of abundance as your present reality. This is not magical thinking. This is the most precise, most rigorous, most honest description of how human consciousness actually works. Every tradition that has ever produced genuinely transformed human lives, every mystical school, every wisdom tradition, every teacher who has helped people step into experiences that seemed impossible from the outside, has pointed to the same interior mechanism. Change the inner state, change the assumption, change the identity. And the outer world, which has always been the servant of the inner world, will faithfully follow. You are standing at the beginning of something. Not because something has changed in your outer world yet, but because something has shifted in this moment, in the way you are understanding yourself and your power. This moment of recognition, this opening of awareness to the truth of what you are, is not small. It is the beginning of everything. The seed is in the ground, the roots are reaching. What was planted in this listening, in this opening, in this willingness to consider that you are not limited by your circumstances, but are instead the creator of them, that is alive in you now. And it will grow. It will work its way upward through the soil of your subconscious, through the cracks in your old assumptions, toward the light of a new and transformed outer experience. Let this be the truth you fall asleep with tonight. Let the feeling of abundance received, of financial freedom as a present reality, of miraculous and unexpected wealth finding its way to you through every available channel. Let that be the last impression you give your subconscious before sleep takes you. Not once, every night, with the consistency and the faith of one who knows that the seed already planted is already growing. And when you wake tomorrow, before the rational mind reasserts the evidence of the old story, let your first inner movement be a return to that state, a quiet, grateful, settled acknowledgement that abundance is your reality, that the miracle is done, that the lottery, the windfall, the financial transformation you have been reaching for has already found its way into the consciousness that is the truest and most fundamental version of you. You are not waiting anymore. That is the shift. That is the whole of it, really. The waiting is over, not because the physical evidence has arrived yet, but because you have made a different inner choice. You have stepped off the shore of hoping and into the current of knowing. And in the current, the movement is inevitable. The arrival is guaranteed, not by luck, not by chance, by the most reliable law in all of existence, that what you are within, you become without. That as you are in your heart, so is your world. That consciousness creates reality, now and always and without exception. And you are that consciousness, awake at last to its own magnificent, limitless, divinely creative power.